Hey there, and welcome to the Event Crushed podcast. Each week, we'll be chatting about all things wedding industry, entrepreneurship, and how to crush it in life and business. I'm so glad you're here. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to the Event Crushed podcast. This is your host, Becky, and I first just want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. If you are someone who has been tuning in week after week, I just want to express how grateful I am that you just continue to listen to the show. It really means the world to me, and it just motivates me to keep going and keep putting out episodes week after week. So just wanted to say that really quick. But today's episode, I am very excited about. I know I say that every week. I'm always excited about my topics, but I think this week's topic is very timely. I think it's the perfect time to be talking about this because it's booking season, baby. So we are all in the mode of, getting inquiries, getting leads, responding, and setting up consults and all of that fun stuff. And I just think that this is the perfect time to really do a deep dive into lead tracking and management and just kind of talk about options for the best way to handle that, because I know it seems super basic and I want to believe that everybody has a really solid process and system for lead tracking, but I feel pretty confident that not everybody does. And so if that's you, then this episode is for you. Even if you feel like you have a really solid system, I would still give this a listen and just see if there's anything that you can pick up to make it even better. Because that's really the goal, is to be improving our systems and improving the way that we are running our businesses. And really, it starts in the very beginning with leads, with couples reaching out to us to inquire, to see if if their date's available, to get information on pricing and services and all of that good stuff. So we're really starting at the beginning today. And I just want to ask you some questions to get you thinking. So if I were to, take a look into your systems right now, do you have a solid system and process for tracking and managing leads? I know a lot of people have a great CRM. For example, it could be Honeybook, it could be Aisle Planner. And so your leads are filtered through that. And so hopefully if you're using one of those programs, you have a great structure in place for tracking and managing your leads. But even if you have a system like that, I think people aren't always taking full advantage of it. And so I would just encourage you to make sure that you're actively using whatever tool you have and that you are taking all the information and the data that you're getting from that and then using that to improve your business. For example, if I asked you right now, what was your conversion rate or booking rate for Q3 of 2024? Would you be able to quickly and easily pull up that information, or would you have to go do a bunch of digging and then do some math and figure that out? Or what if I asked you what percentage of your leads come from referrals? Or what percentage of your leads come from social media? Or what if I asked you how much money you made in sales Q4 of 2024? Are these just things you'd quickly be able to answer? You'd quickly be able to access that information? Or would you have to, again, go back and dig and do some math and figure things out to get me that number? And the reason I'm asking is because I really believe we should all be able to easily answer those questions and have access to the data to give us those answers. But if you're anything like me, you might not have that data right in front of your face, right at the top of your mind. And my goal with this episode is to hopefully change that. Something you'll hear a lot in the industry is the phrase, know your numbers. Even outside of the wedding industry, it's just a very common phrase. I'm sure you've heard it. And it might sound like one of those phrases that people just throw around, but there is so much validity to it. And the way that I think about it is how can you improve in your business if you don't know where you are at currently. Like, how can you continue to grow if you can't compare month over month or year over year to see the growth that is or isn't there? So today we're talking about the importance of knowing your numbers, knowing those numbers. And obviously there's a lot of different ways in business that we can talk about knowing our numbers. It can, relate to sales and pricing and all of that stuff. But today I really want to hone in on knowing your numbers in terms of leads, how many leads you're getting, how many of those leads are converting, how much money you are losing or leaving on the table by not closing leads, and what you can do with this information. Because knowledge is power. And if you can start to see where in the process you're losing leads, or if you're starting to see that you're getting ghosted a ton, you'll be able to work towards fixing those issues. But first, we have to find and address those issues. And you'll also be able to see things like for example, if you're closing a ton of leads, if you have a very high conversion rate, then that is a sign that, hey, it's probably time to raise your rates. And then at the end of the episode, I will be sharing about a tool that will help you with all of this that I am offering as a very affordable template that you can purchase and download to help you get your 2025 off on the best foot possible. And if you start this right now, so today is January 10th of 2025, by the end of the year, you will have this incredible resource just filled with data about your business and your numbers that you will be able to use and to inform yourself and your business and your company to make changes to have an even better 2026. So I will share more about this offering at the end of the episode, but I did just want to mention that so you know that that is coming. So I want to share a quick story because this is something that has happened to me multiple times, and I wonder if you can relate at all. So my business coach, Candace Coppola, she does these really fantastic marketing workshops at the end of each quarter or at the beginning of a new quarter. And she asks all of these questions about, for that quarter, where did your leads come from? What was your conversion rate? Various key metrics, and just all these questions that I was like, wow, these are really great questions. But at the end of every quarter, I was having to go back through and, count. Okay, I had 5 leads from this one venue, and I had 10 leads from Google, and I had 12 leads from social media. I would count up everything. And then I would go, okay, so I had this many total leads, and, this is how many from each referral source. And then, calculate my conversion rate and just do everything very manually. But then at the end, it was like, oh, I have all this great information. And then the next quarter, doing it all over again. Oh, I have to count and do math and pull, I have to go basically, it's so messy, but I was going through my inbox and counting all the leads that came in. And I will say, I am in a little bit of a unique situation because up until about a year and a half ago, I was using a system that had a really great lead tracking capability. And so if I was still using that system, I think that this would be easier. The new CRM that I switched to, it has lead tracking. It's just not set up, it's not specifically for wedding pros. So it is a little bit clunky. And that is why I'm in this kind of funky position of realizing I really need a better system for this. And so that is why I created my ultimate lead and sales tracker, was to have all of this information at hand, at my fingertips, and to be able to take it and use it. So again, if you are in a similar situation, we'll talk more about that later. But if you're like me, maybe you have some gaps in your booking process, in your, lead management capabilities. And so one of the first key points I want to just quickly touch on is why tracking is important, why having a solid system for lead management is essential for your business. And it comes down to a few things. The first one is better decision-making. So like I mentioned before, knowing your numbers is extremely important. And once you know your numbers, you can use that information to help you understand what is working and also what's not working. For example, which marketing efforts are bringing in the most leads? If you can clearly see what percentage of your leads are coming from all of your different referral sources, you can know which ones are really paying off. Because maybe you are paying a lot of money for some kind of print ad or online ad, but when you look at your data and you see only 1 or 2 leads came from those sources, well, hey, maybe that investment is no longer worthwhile. And so that's just one example of how we can use this data to help us make decisions in our businesses and just make a plan for moving forward. If you are not reviewing the data and you're just kind of, it's like, throwing spaghetti at a wall and just hoping something sticks, but you're not really knowing what's working and what's not working. And that's just really never a great method. And then the next point I wanted to mention is just a better booking process for your potential clients, for you. Just the ability to stay organized and follow up on leads ensures that no potential client slips through the cracks. I really believe in a strong follow-up process with inquiries. I think people often miss out on bookings because they respond to that initial email and then they don't have a system for following up. So then they don't follow up and, that client goes on to book somebody else because there wasn't that second or third touch point. And so that's something we'll talk a little bit more about later too. And then lastly, another reason why tracking is just very important is financial health and growth of your business. So tracking revenue, conversion rates, and sales trends to be able to make projections and plan for future growth. All right. And then I wanted to talk a bit about the key metrics that wedding pros should be tracking in the booking process. So, of course, the first one is leads. You need to know where your leads are coming from. So every time you get a lead, hopefully you're able to mark, this person came from this venue. This person came from Instagram. This person came from a past client that recommended me. This one came from a Google search. This one came from Pinterest. And then the other thing you should be tracking is your response times and follow-up frequency. So if you aren't converting leads very well, but you see, like if you're tracking, when you're receiving a lead and then when you are responding and you see, oh, I've been taking like 3 to 4 days or even a week to respond to leads, it's very possible that the reason you aren't converting those leads is because you are taking so long to respond. Just an interesting piece of data that I wanted to share, but studies suggest that 35 to 50% of leads book the first vendor to respond to their inquiry. So it's more important than ever to respond quickly to leads. And I know that not everybody is at their computer or in their email 24 hours a day. So it is really easy to let hours or even days go by. But if I could encourage you in one thing in this booking season, it would be to work on your response time and get back to couples as quickly as you can. It doesn't need to be a super lengthy email. It can be simple. It can be short and sweet. But if you are able to get back to a potential couple or client quickly, that is a huge green flag to them. And they are going to remember that. Whereas somebody who took a week to get back to them, that's already putting a bad taste in their mouth. And that is the last thing that we want to be doing when we are trying to book these weddings and convert these leads. So other metrics that you are going to want to be tracking are, of course, like I've mentioned a couple of times, your conversion rate or your booking rate. And I think there's a few different ones that I think are important to note. One is the number of inquiries that you receive, and then how many of those turn into bookings. Obviously, that percentage rate is going to be a lot smaller than the number of consults that you set up that lead to bookings. So I personally believe the more important number is the number of consults and then the number of bookings from those consults. Hopefully that number is a very high percentage. But if we're just talking number of inquiries to number of bookings, that is going to be a lot lower. And then you also want to be tracking the average booking value and then the different services booked. So you can keep track of, which is your most popular offerings, which is the top one that people are booking. And maybe if you see services that just are not booking, then maybe you phase those out, or maybe you need to make some adjustments to those. And I don't know if you know this, but the average booking rate in the wedding industry it's kind of a big range, but anywhere from around 10% to 30%. Some sources suggest as low as 5 to 10%, and then some as high as 20 to 30%. So that means that for every 10 leads that come in, the average vendor is booking around 2 to 3 of those leads. So that's not a huge percentage. And maybe you're looking at these numbers and going like, oh, wow, I'm way beyond that, which is fantastic. And if you're like, oh, I'm actually not quite to that level, then hey, we've got some work to do and some room for growth. So I would just ask yourself, how are you doing in relation to these average numbers? Like, do you feel good about where you're at? Do you see room for improvement? And if so, then keep listening, because we'll be getting into it more. And then another thing as far as key metrics is your booking process workflow. So basically just keeping track of where leads are at in your sales funnel. So not losing them in the process, basically being able to track them. Okay, this one, they've only inquired so far. I sent my response email, but they haven't got back to me. And then, they booked a consultation. So now they've moved on to the next phase of the booking process by scheduling a consult. And then after that, it's kind of in your court to send the proposal or however you manage that next phase of the process. And then, they accepted the proposal. Now it's back in my court to send the contract and the invoice. And then finally, marking them as booked and then moving them into your planning process and all of that good stuff. So just being able to see where all of your leads are at in your funnel is really important. And again, just helps you to not drop the ball or not get back to somebody that you had promised you would, or just losing people along the way. And it's also important to be able to identify bottlenecks or common drop-off points. So if you see that you are losing a lot of people after the initial inquiry, there might be a reason for that. It might be pricing related. It might be because you're, again, taking too long to respond. There could be, various reasons for that. If you're losing them after the consult, could have something to do with your proposals and what you're presenting to them and how you're presenting it to them. It could be something about the consultation itself that just needs improved. So it's just important to know in the process where you are losing those leads and evaluating why that might be happening. And I wanted to share some practical tips for staying on top of tracking, no matter what kind of system you're using, whether you have a HoneyBook or an aisle planner or a Dubsado, whatever you use. There's so many great resources out there. But the most important thing is to create and just have a solid system to use. So every time a new lead comes in, you should be going into your system. Hopefully, your website contact form is connected to whatever your CRM is. That will make your life so much easier because the information, while it, goes to your inbox, it will also be going into your CRM and already just automatically having all of the information, which is fantastic. But also sometimes we get leads directly through our email, like they'll just email us versus using our contact form. Or maybe you get leads via Instagram DMs, or maybe you get leads through sites like The Knot or Wedding Wear. That means that you are needing to manually go into your system and add those leads in. So they're all in there. That is an extremely important step that I think I'm not sure that everybody is doing that. And that's why it's really easy to lose track of those Instagram DM leads or those various other ones that you might be getting that aren't coming through your website contact form. You just need to make sure you're adding all of those into your lead tracking system so that you can stay on top of them and hopefully not lose out on them. And you'll want to, add in details such as the inquiry date, the date you responded. So again, that you can hold yourself accountable and make sure that you are responding in a timely manner. The event date, the level of service desired, where the referral came from, and other pertinent data. And then, like I mentioned before, just track each lead as it goes through the process. With my sales and lead tracker, I can mark each lead as it moves through the process from inquiry to consult, to proposal, to contract, and invoice, and all the way to booked. And I touched on this before, but make sure you have a solid system for following up. These days, this is half the battle. I don't want you to lose out on a lead by not following up with them. Make sure you have a solid process for scheduling follow-ups for each new inquiry. I have a whole episode about ghosting in the wedding industry and what we can be doing to hopefully combat that. So I can't think of what number it is off the top of my head, but I will be sure to link that episode in the show notes. So if you haven't listened to that one, that would be a great one to listen to around this time as well. And of course, automate wherever you can throughout this process just to streamline and make your life easier, make your potential clients' lives easier. If you are able to automatically send your pricing guide or details whenever somebody inquires through your website contact form, that's fantastic. You could even include a link to your scheduling page so that they could potentially even schedule a consult without ever even having spoken with you. The quicker you can get to that point with, minimal effort is just fantastic. So automate wherever you can throughout the booking process. And then the other thing to touch on is to schedule regular check-ins. So it's one thing to start collecting all of this information and data, but it's really nothing if we don't analyze it. So make sure that you are setting aside time every month and every quarter to review all of the information and take what you learn from it and apply it to your next quarter's marketing efforts. Because again, like I mentioned before, if you're doing that paid advertising, but you're not getting inquiries or bookings from that, then I would say, hey, let's take a pause on that for now and see where else you could use that money. Okay, and the last thing I want to share are just some common mistakes to avoid. So the first one, of course, is just not tracking at all. So if you right now have no system for tracking leads, you're just like, you're getting leads and you're responding to the leads, but then there's no follow-up, there's no system for tracking. You don't know where your referral sources are. You don't know where the leads are coming from. You don't have any idea what your conversion rate is. If that's you, then let me just say, now is the time to start. It's January. It's the beginning of the year. It's booking season. It is literally the most perfect time to start tracking. And the only way to go is up from here. So another common mistake to avoid is overcomplicating the process by using tools or systems that are too complex or too time-consuming. For me, my CRM, like I mentioned, the system for tracking leads is pretty clunky and it just doesn't work great for me, which is why I created my own tool for tracking, because I just needed something that was tailored to the wedding industry and that I could just get in and update the info super easily and see all the numbers in one place. So if you are in a situation where you're dealing with a similar thing, just see if there's another option to simplify and just kind of streamline things so you're not, because then if you feel overwhelmed by it or if it's overcomplicated, you're not going to do it, which is what we are trying to avoid. And one more common mistake to avoid is failing to act on the data. So I touched on this before, but collecting numbers, but not using them to adjust strategies or improve processes is just useless. It's like, what's the point? What good is data without action? So use the knowledge you have obtained to help grow your business. For example, if you're getting couples on the consult call, but they're not booking from there, maybe there are some improvements that need to be made to your consults or your proposals. If you're not even getting couples to the consult stage, maybe they're just having a hard time understanding the value you provide. So maybe there's some things you can do on your website and in the emails that you're sending couples before the consult that can help them to understand the value that you will bring to them. So as we are getting ready to wrap up this episode, I can't believe it's already almost been 30 minutes. I just want to share a bit more about this tool that I mentioned. So I'm calling it the Ultimate Lead and Sales Tracker. And basically it's a collaboration with Andrew, my husband. Andrew owns Heart Systems Bookkeeping, and he is an amazing bookkeeper, a numbers whiz, a spreadsheet master, like everything that my brain lacks in, like his is full of. So, of course, I'm more of like the creative minded, and he's the very analytical, numbers minded. And so I think whenever him and I get to collaborate on something, it's super cool because I think we just each have our own unique expertise. And so, with my expertise in the wedding industry and his bookkeeping and spreadsheet numbers expertise, we were able to create an incredible resource. And so, it is a Google Sheets template that is your one-stop spot for tracking leads, seeing where all of your leads are coming from, staying on top of moving potential clients through the booking process, tracking your sales, tracking your service offerings and rate of booking, tracking your conversion rates. And it's all broken out quarter by quarter with a beautiful visual dashboard that is filled with colorful charts to help you analyze the data. This tool is for anyone in the wedding industry, including planners, photographers, florists, videographers, bakers, stationery designers. Anybody and everyone could potentially have a use for this. And with this Google spreadsheet, you will save time, improve organization, and get clarity on your business performance. So if you think that sounds cool, you can head to the link in the show notes below to purchase the template and start tracking leads today. Like I mentioned, it's super affordable. I'm just not saying the price because this podcast will live forever and the price might change over time. So click the link, check it out. The template also includes a short video walkthrough that will answer all of your questions to help you get your lead tracker set up and running in no time. And it's completely customizable to suit any business needs. So that is a bit about that. If you have any questions about it, you can shoot me an email. It's becky@eventcrush.com. You can also message me on Instagram @eventcrush. So with that, we'll go ahead and close out. But thank you again for tuning in. I hope that you are having a wonderful booking season so far, that you're getting lots of great leads that are just quality and a good fit for you and your company. And I'd love to connect with you over on Instagram. So I do have a new page for the podcast and all of the kind of educational side of things that I would love for you to give a follow. So it's @eventcrush.ed or eventcrushed. So we'll see you back here next Friday. We'll have another episode. I'm doing some solo episodes for now, and then we'll be kicking off more interviews very soon. So stay tuned for that. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we will chat again soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Event Crushed podcast. I hope you found value in this episode, and if you did, please consider sharing it with a wedding industry friend. We also hope you'll consider leaving a rating or review for the show to help other listeners find it. This podcast is edited and produced by Ace Sound Design. If you're looking to elevate your audio experience, their info can be found in the show description. As always, thank you for listening, and please connect with us on Instagram if you haven't already. Now get out there and crush it.